Okay guys, welcome to this tutorial on how to use MyFitnessPal to put on muscle or to get bigger essentially. Just remember again, getting bigger doesn't mean you're going to blow up like a balloon. It just means we're building muscle in this phase. Okay, so that being said, the first thing we're going to do is download the app MyFitnessPal if you haven't done so already. And then in the bottom right hand corner there's a tab called More. We're just going to select that. And you should come to a screen that looks like this. First thing we're going to do is go to My Profile. And we're going to click on Edit Profile. And we're going to make sure all our settings are correct. So height is correct, gender is correct, date of birth is correct. Don't worry about location or zip code, but go down to units and make sure that units is selected as following. So you want the following preferences selected: kilograms, centimeters, kilometers, calories. It often comes as a default as kilojoules, so make sure calories is selected, and then cups. Once you've got all those preferences set correctly, put the tick in the right hand corner, click that, and then let's just go back to our main page. All right, so directly under My Profile is goals. We're going to select that, and we're going to start with current weight. So you put in your current weight there. Let's say I am 80 kilos, and I want to get up to whatever goal you would ideally like to be at. You can set that. A reasonable goal, of course. Don't go crazy, but it doesn't really matter too much because what's going to change it is the weekly goal number under that. That's going to be more important than anything else. So you can put your goal weight as 80 or 85, as 85, 90, or whatever it is, 5, 10 kilos more than you're aiming for. But what's going to be far more important is this setting underneath that, which is weekly goal. So we're going to select that. And our options are gain 0.5 kilograms per week or gain 0.2. So everyone thinks gaining more would be awesome, which it is. But the problem is, as you gain more muscle, you're also more likely to gain more fat if your calories are too high. So at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how we use Sculpt and track our data every week to determine how we adjust our calories. But it's fine if you want to start higher or lower. My suggestion would be to start lower with the 0.2 kilograms per week and then just track your results. If it doesn't, then bring it up. I would prefer that because muscle is going to go up, as opposed to if you overshoot it, we have to get rid of body fat. So my suggestion would be to start with 0.2 kilograms per week. Unless you're well underweight and you've been well under eating, then you can obviously set 0.5 or even higher. After that, we're going to select activity level. Are you sure? Just click yes every time. And then none of you will really select not very active because you're all training. You should really be training at least 3 times a week. I know some of you are training 2, but the ideal time frame that you want to be trained really is minimally 3 times a week. Ideally, you're training more. But let's say you are only training 2 to 3 times a week and you have got a desk job. So you're sitting on your bum all day, you're not doing very much. Then you would select between not very active or lightly active. If you have a job where you are a bit more active and you're training, say, 4 times a week or 3 times a week still, then you would select lightly active. If you are an active job, so you're on your feet all day, you're a builder, you're a nurse, any of those type of jobs, then, and you're training 4 times a week, you would select between lightly active and active. Active is really more for people that have an active job and are training more regularly. Obviously, if you're training full time, say 5, 6 days per week, you've got a very active job, you're moving around all day, then you would select very active. In this example, I'm just going to select lightly active, and that is pretty much it. All those settings are in now, and then the last thing we need to play around with is calories, carbs, proteins, and fat goals, which is just under the heading there, nutritional goals. So we're going to click on that, and it will take us to this page. So if you change any of those settings, you'll notice that the calories here, in this case 2,740, will change. If you are more active, if you want to gain more muscle mass per week, the 0.5 versus the 0.2, that will change these total calories. So it's important that we try to do it as best as possible to begin with, but if it's out, don't worry too much because we're going to track our data each week and therefore we're going to adjust these settings accordingly. Now, the last thing I need to show you is how to select carbohydrates, proteins, and fats based on your body type. Okay, so how do we know what body type we are, and therefore how do we change our macronutrient settings in MyFitnessPal? So once again, you're either more of an ectomorph, mesomorph, or endomorph. And this is a bit of a caveat or an oversimplification of how this actually works, because of course some of us fall somewhere in between. But it's a good guideline of letting you guys know how you should set your ratios in MyFitnessPal. So the 3 major body types are ectomorphs, mesomorphs, and endomorphs that we're going to run through, and we're going to look at them in more detail. All right, first one up is endomorph. Endomorph this is generally people with a larger frame. They are constantly trying to lose weight. They feel they're a little bit chunkier and bigger than other individuals. Now, if this is you, what we're going to suggest is that you set your ratios 35% protein, 25% carbs, and 40% fats. Really what it comes down to is these individuals tend not to be very tolerant for carbohydrates. So we want to reduce the amount of carbohydrates that this individual is having, and therefore our protein and our fats go up. So really what you got to make sure is that your carbs are set to quite a low level, around about 25%. Endomorph, that's how you set that. Ectomorph. Ectomorph is someone that is generally lean, with a smaller frame, thinner limbs, they have a fast metabolism, and they really struggle to put on muscle a lot of the time or gain weight. They're called a hard gainer. And these individuals can obviously tolerate a lot more carbs. So your carbs are going to be set closer to 55%, your protein 25%, and your fat 20%. So just know that's how it's going to change it in the macronutrient settings. And finally, if you feel that you're more of a mesomorph is someone who's quite athletically looking, medium-sized frame, and seem to gain muscle and stay lean very easily. So they put on muscle very easily, but they also don't put on a lot of body fat in conjunction with that. You're going to fall somewhere in the middle if that's you, 30% protein, 40% carbs, and 30% for your fats. So that's how you're going to set it in MyFitnessPal. If you think you lean more towards endomorph, set it as 35, 25, 40. If you feel you are more of an ectomorph, set it as 25, 55, 20. And if you feel you are somewhere in between, or closer to a mesomorph, set it as a 30, 40, 30. Cool. Hope that helps in terms of how you set it in MyFitnessPal. All right, now that we've set our carbohydrates, proteins, and fat sources, we're just going to go out of there and we're going to go back to the main menu once again. And from the main menu, what we're going to do now is we're going to start learning how to put in our food. So we're going to use the plus button here, down the big blue button down the bottom, and we click on that. Now the only tab that you'll need here is food. So the orange button in the middle, food, we're going to select that. And let's say we're having breakfast in this example. All right, once you add something, so say you add any food, in the search button there with the little magnifying glasses, just put in any food that you might want to eat. So in this example, let's go tin tuna. Why not? Tin tuna. All right, then a whole bunch of options come up. If you've got a specific brand that you use, then awesome. You can put that brand in and it should come up as well. But for this example, we're just going to use Woolworths home brand and say that we're going to have a full tin of that. So let's select that option and the serving size. As you can see there, say I'm having 2 of them. I'm going to select serving size, which is 1 at the moment. And I'm going to say I'm going to have 2 of them or 3 of them or however many I have, I change the serving size. If I'm only having half a tin of tuna, for example, I select the 0 and then I drag that to a half setting like so. And I'll just click yes there. So now I've only got a half servings and everything should have changed. So that's basically what we want to do here. We're going to click the plus button up the top right hand corner. And as you can see, to my breakfast, we've now got added tin tuna. Now, also what I want to show you there, if I click the plus button once again, the big blue button down the bottom, and food again, and breakfast again, you'll see tin tuna has now been added to my recents. And if I use it a lot, it will then be added to my frequents. So you can see these are some of the frequent foods that I eat. All right, so at this point in time, you should know how to track your food. It's very, very easy. I just want to show you something though. So let's say I'm having spaghetti and I'm going to have 500 grams just for this argument. So let's say I'm having 500 grams. I just want to show you what happens if I go over my limits on anything. So you can see how many carbs there, how many grams of carbs, how many grams of fat, how many grams of protein. Now this is obviously super, super high in carbohydrates, but I'm doing this for a reason. So we'll select that. And here you go. Your daily goal is to eat less than 214 grams of carbohydrates. So if you have selected in your macronutrients a certain carb range, 20%, 40%, say you're more of the endomorph and you're choosing a larger body fat percentage, a larger carb percentage, or you're more of an ectomorph and you've got a larger carb percentage, or you're trying to gain mass respectively, whatever the goal is, what's going to happen here is obviously it'll just give you warnings in terms of what's happening with your macronutrients. So it's really, really handy just as looking at each time. Once you put in a food, sometimes it's surprising to us how many carbs or how little fats or how little carbohydrates or calories are in that particular meal. So it's good to keep an eye on this. But really up the top here, where you see calories, whatever your calories are, say it's a larger calorie goal, that's your goal for the day. In this example, 1,710. And so far, with those two meals, I've already had 1,608, which means I've basically got 102 calories remaining, which is not a lot. So for this person, but that is 500 grams of bolognese to be fair, that's a lot. That's their calorie max for the day. Now, one other thing that I want to show you is if we just go out of here, so you obviously just track all your food and you make sure that you're hitting your calorie goal for the day. And we go more and we go nutrition. This will be your pie chart. So for today, it's currently set day view today. I can go week view. I can go change date so I can see from a specific time frame. But let's just go day view. This person's goal down the right-hand side there, you see goal, carbohydrates 50%, fat 30%, protein 20%. They've already blown out their total goal for the day with carbohydrates with 68%. So this is a really good way of tracking it as you move through a day to make sure that you're hitting your macronutrient goals based on the foods that you're selecting. You have a lot of options in terms of what you can choose of food because you're tracking, but you need to keep an eye on these macronutrients so that you don't go over it. If you do go over a little bit, don't fret. It doesn't need to be exactly 50%, all right? If it can be like closer to 45 some days and then 55 others, it's just going to balance out more or less for whatever your respective targets are. Cool. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. One other feature I want to show you is if you're tracking food, you can click this plus button again, food once again, breakfast once again, and then you'll see the barcode in the top right-hand corner. If you select that barcode, like I'm going to do now, you can basically scan any product. And that product comes straight up for you, and then you just select your serving size. The serving size, as that is for natural cashews, is 30 grams. I might have 60 grams, or I might have less. Let's say let's go 60 grams, just for simplicity. Plus, brilliant, 2 serving sizes, and off you go. Obviously, if I had 40 grams or whatever it would be 1, and then the fraction respectively of what you need to work it out to. But for simplicity, let's go 2. Boom, there we go. And now I've gone over my calories for the day. Hope that all makes sense on how you're going to track your calories and your macros, whether your goal is getting bigger or smaller. One other thing I need to say, this is going to be the most important bit, so please pay attention to this. What I'm going to be doing is using this app called Sculpt to be tracking our lean muscle quality and also our body fat every single week. So in the top left-hand corner there, you can see a score of 98.9. That's our muscle quality. And in the top right-hand corner, there's a score of 9.5. That's our body fat quality. All right, so what we want to be doing is, depending on our goal, we want to make sure that the other attribute or quality isn't coming along for the ride. So if we're trying to drop body fat, we want body fat to be going down, but muscle quality should also not be coming along for the ride and dropping as well. On the flip side of that, if we're trying to build muscle, we want our muscle quality score to go up each week, but we don't want body fat to go up each week as well. So I'll just run you through a little quick example of that so it's a little bit more clear for some of you. If we're trying to drop body fat, we would expect our scores to start at 20 and then go 18 and 17, 15, 15.1, whatever it is, might go up a little bit. But generally the trend line is heading down. Then we know we're doing the right thing, body fat is dropping. But, and there's a big but on this, we need to make sure that our muscle quality isn't dropping as well. So say your body fat is dropping, but your muscle quality score's gone from, let's say 60 to 56 to 54 to 51. Your muscle quality is now dropping. We don't want that. You're eating too few calories and you need to start adding more food back into your program. Enough that your body fat still drops, but you spare a little bit of your muscle quality. Your muscle quality isn't dropping as fast. So that's the first thing, and that should make sense to you guys. Really make sure that the attribute that you want to drop is dropping and not the other one. On the flip side of that, if we were trying to put on lean muscle mass, we would want to make sure that the scores are going up from something like 80 to 82.5 to 85, 87. Muscle quality is going up. But when we look at body fat each week, we'd want to make sure that the body fat isn't coming along for the ride. It isn't going up from 15% to 16% to 17%, 19%. And if body fat is coming along for the ride, we need to reduce our calories so that we mitigate or limit the amount of body fat that we're actually adding as we're adding muscle mass or toning. It's the same thing. Remember, you can only get bigger or smaller, but it's very, very important that the right attribute is getting bigger and not the other stuff coming along for the ride. Hence why weights on the scales doesn't tell you